Always good to know it's recording.
Hi to everyone who's streaming in right now. Hi to Terry, to Ryan, Brandon. Really happy to have everyone here so far. We'll wait another minute as people start rolling in, and then we'll get right into the content. Hi Terry, where are you tuning in from? We have over 100 registrants for today's webinar, so this will be packed house. I also see Franco, Brandon, Arlene, Alan in the chat right now. University of Calgary. Okay. All right. As everyone keeps streaming in, I'll start doing the welcome and we can get the logistics out of the way and get the show on the road. So, hi everyone, welcome to Building an Advisory Council for your Entrepreneurship Center with Zach Shulman. This webinar is hosted by StartupTree and the leading platform used by top universities and the best way to manage and grow your entrepreneurial program at scale. So a recorded version of this webinar will be provided to everyone who's registered for the event, along with a copy of the slide deck. Please note that in this Zoom, there's both a Q&A box and a chat box. So if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please send them to Zach and our team in the Q&A box, and we will address them as they pop up. The chat, on the other hand, as I see everyone is already starting to get use of, is for comments, and please make sure to send to panelists and attendees so everyone can see them if you wish. At the end of the session, we will also have a live question and answer where you can use the raise hand function to come on stage and ask your question to Zach live. We'll also have a few stop points for polls. And for those of you just joining us now, welcome. My name is Hulda. I will be here as your moderator throughout the session. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, Zach Shulman. Zach has been Director of Entrepreneurship at Cornell since October 2013 and a managing partner at Cayuga Venture Fund since 2004. Prior to his current roles, Zach was a senior lecturer at Cornell's Graduate School of Management and headed up many entrepreneurship programs there. Before that, Zach was a corporate lawyer at Ropes & Gray in Boston and Harris Beach in Ithaca, and also general counsel at a tech company that raised boatloads of venture capital in 1999 and 2000. He earned a Bachelor of Science from the Cornell University of Industrial and Labor Relations and graduated from Cornell Law School, magna cum laude. Zach has built up the Advisory Council at Cornell with great successes in alumni engagement and funding opportunities, and we are so grateful to have him here today to teach us how we can all replicate those results. Take it away, Zach.
Great, thanks so much. So hey everybody, looks like I have about 40 people participating, which is wonderful. I'm actually up in Montreal today, dropping my daughter off at McGill. She scheduled her drop off after I scheduled this webinar, so I said that was fine, but we had to keep my commitments, so happy to be here. As Holga mentioned, if you have questions throughout the webinar, by all means, drop them into the Q&A box. We will monitor that during it, and my preference would be to take those questions as they come up, assuming that they relate to things I'm talking about at that time. And then we'll have another Q&A session at the end, which is live, but feel free to use the Q&A box during the webinar. So today we're going to go through 7 topics, and they're listed on the screen here. So we'll talk about the purpose of an advisory council, what might be the right number for your council if you're thinking of having one, key campus partners, and that's driving off of my own experience at Cornell, how to use the advisory council, which is also named engagement, recruiting members, publicizing, and then the summary Q&A. I also noted that there are a couple of the advisory council members from Entrepreneurship at Cornell on the webinar. I saw them sneak in somehow, which is great. So I will keep that in mind as I give my comments. So here we go. Hold this out for the first poll. Okay, so does your center have an advisory council? And if you don't, do you want one? And while you guys are answering that, I will continue on and Olga will pop back up and tell us the results.
All right, so as the results are streaming in, I think we're leaning majority towards no, but we do want one, with some with yes. And some. I'll end the poll in another 10 seconds if everyone can get their answers in.
Yeah. So if you can't tell already, I definitely recommend having one. They really can help. So as we go through, let me click to the next slide. Oh, look at this. This is great. So I'm assuming they can see those poll results also, Holga, right?
Yes.
Okay. So most people are the yes or no but want one, and only 2 out of the 32 are in the no, we don't want one. I'd be curious to know why you don't want one. If you can pop that in the chat or the Q&A, so we can check that out. That would be super. So the purpose of the advisory council, in my view, is twofold. Okay, one is fundraising, and 2 is engagement. And those are not in that order; they're just in the order on the slide. So you could have engagement first and fundraising second. It doesn't make a difference, but I'm going to go through both of these purposes because it's actually pretty important. So let's start with some of the engagement topic, but just doing it really briefly because we'll jump into this later on. So on the engagement side, I just want to focus that sometimes it's really challenging to engage, okay? Because if you have a lot of people on your council and they're not all in your location, for example, at Cornell we have over 100 people on our advisory council. They're all over the country and some even internationally. So engagement can be difficult, particularly during COVID. I will say this, in some sense, COVID made Zoom types of engagement a lot easier because we were able to hold meetings on Zoom with really great attendance. I'll come back to engagement in just a bit. On the fundraising side, when we talk about people joining in, it is important, in my view, to have the advisory council set up to be a mechanism to help you raise funds for your program. Okay, and I'll talk about some of those details about how Cornell has handled that in just a bit as well. Okay, so here's some key questions to answer about the purpose of having an advisory council. And maybe for the folks who don't want one, maybe this will change your mind. So how much input do you want from your advisory council, and how much do they want to give? It is definitely going to be the case that if you have an advisory council if you have an advisory council, some members will literally not want to give input much at all. They'll want to support your program, they want to come to school perhaps and give a lecture or engage with some students, but they really don't want too much else, and that's perfectly fine. You'll have others who want to give a lot of input, and that's also great. Of course, you have to know how to handle that input. You need to make sure that people on the council understand that you're working inside of a university environment. So at Cornell, for example, like at any big school, it can get pretty bureaucratic. And whether an advisory council member brings up an idea, it might be an idea that really has no chance of execution. Okay, I can't think of a good example off the top of my head, but there are certain things that some schools just won't allow, right? Or just won't fit into someone's plan higher up at the university. So it's good to be, in my experience, very direct about these things and making sure your council understands their role, okay? So they don't have what I would call actual power in the sense that they're not going to influence or direct immediate decisions at the school, but they certainly have influential capability in how you run your own program. And I think this is actually really important. So please keep that in mind. Sometimes advisory council members are running businesses, right, that actually might be great sponsors for your program, or they might work at businesses that might be great sponsors for your program. I've actually found corporate sponsorship to be pretty tricky. We have a lot of good corporate sponsors. Today isn't the seminar on that, but our corporate sponsors contribute anywhere from $200,000 to $250,000 a year to our program, and that's actually pretty important. I'll give you the overall picture. Our overall budget for our program at Cornell is about 1.3 to 1.4 million. So if corporate sponsors are giving up to $250 million, that's actually pretty significant. I'll let the secret sauce out of the bag now. Our advisory council members give even more than that. Okay, and I'll talk about that in just a bit. So on the engagement front, like I mentioned earlier, it is a big challenge because some folks like to be engaged more than others. Engagement is one of those words where people like to say it, but sometimes don't like to give ideas about how best to engage. So they'll say, oh, I want to feel more engaged. And I'm like, well, how do you want to feel more engaged? Do you want to mentor a student team? Do you want to speak at an event or a class? And that can get into tricky territory. Some of your AC members, aren't good speakers. I'll give you an example of this. I'm not going to name the person, obviously, but we had a speaker at our demo day for one of our accelerator programs. This is a long time ago. And this person ended up, I was like, great, I would love you to speak at demo day and give some inspiration to our students. And this person ended up being not a good speaker, and I really felt bad about it because we had about 700 people in our audience, and the students did not get inspiration from this speaker, and I was really, really feeling bad. So you have to be careful and do a little bit of vetting. Mentoring students and student teams is a great way to engage. Making sure that your AC members actually follow up with your students can be a challenge. People get busy. So you have to have some follow-up mechanism. Okay, what's the right number? This is an interesting question. Here's the poll. So 10 to 20, 20 to 40, 60 plus, 40 to 60. How long should we give them, Holger, to answer the poll?
Right now, the questions are streaming in pretty quickly. We have about 60% of the webinar has answered. I'll give another 5 to 10 seconds.
Okay.
I'd say a grand majority right now, I don't want this to influence anybody else's answers, but are saying 10 to 20.
Okay. Now, I would love to know why the number is so small. So this is a pickle. Okay, so 10 to 20 is a great, let's just say 10 to 40 even. It's a great small number to manage. And if you're coming from a smaller school where you don't have a lot of entrepreneurial alumni, or if you just want to have a smaller number because you think it's easier to manage, that's actually perfectly fine. I can tell you at Cornell, I'm going to go to the next slide. At Cornell, we have about 100 people, and some folks may say, gosh, that's a lot of people, but fundraising is important. I mentioned this already. Our total budget is about $1.3 million. This past fiscal year, so our fiscal year, like many of you, our school fiscal year ends June 30th. So this past fiscal year for fiscal 21, our advisory council members contributed $400,000 to our program. And that's a lot of money, and it enables us to do a lot of great things for our students. I always like to say the more money we have, the more we spend helping students. So it's important if you can handle a lot of people. I think it's important that you have as many as you can handle. So if I had 200 people, I think I could handle it, right? The reality is of those 200, maybe half will be seriously engaged. The other half don't want to be engaged. They just want to give you their contribution. They want you to do great things at your university or college, and they want you to keep giving out, turning out great student entrepreneurs, which is actually really important. I would say nothing makes my advisory council members more happy than seeing student entrepreneurs succeed, right? And if they happen to help them, which many of them do, that's even better. Quick side note, we have 3 levels of advisory council members at Cornell. So we have a young alumni, which we call Series Seed. And our Series Seed are folks that are from 0 to 10 years out from Cornell. They pay $1,000 a year. We have a Series A level, which is $5,000 a year. And we have a founder level that we just started last summer, so about a year ago, at the $10,000 level. And this is a good time for a segue. when COVID hit and we couldn't have in-person meetings, we formed about 10 different advisory council committee teams, and we had them work on various projects. One of those projects was why be an advisory council member, and actually listing things out and creating a marketing brochure. And through that work, this idea of having a founder level tier came up because people were like, there are many people that would love to give more. It's kind of funny. I read an article just the other day. When you ask somebody for a contribution, and let's say it's $5,000, they give the $5,000 happily, and they think that, well, that's all I need to give, right? So you need to be careful about how you make the asks. It's really important. So we created a founder level, and right now I think we have, I don't know, 7 or 8 people that stepped into that founder level, which is just absolutely fantastic. Okay, so on the engagement side, if your goal is engagement, which again, it really needs to be an important goal, okay, then you need to figure out how many people can I manage to engage successfully. And this is a delicate dance. I can't say it any other way. Again, some people want lots of engagement. Some people want very little. You have to use your own people skills and figure out what the right balance is. I do want to note, as stated at the bottom of this slide, there is absolutely nothing mutually exclusive between fundraising and engagement. Okay, so I have a really large council, great for fundraising, and I think we also do a wonderful job with engagement. Okay, so it's important to know that you can definitely have both.
Zach, before we go on to the next topic, would you be able
Yeah.
to address some of the questions in the chat?
Oh, sure. Are they in the chat or the Q&A? Oh, I see they're in the chat. Okay, let me expand my chat box so I can read it more easily. Okay, this is interesting. So Terry asked, do you put advisors into different tiers of engagement? Terry, the answer there is no. It's really up to the actual advisory council members. So like I mentioned earlier, we have some that like a lot of engagement, that like to come to come to campus often. They like to engage with students, and we have some that like to do very little, but we don't have defined tiers. And I think this is important. What I always tell people when I'm doing recruitment for the advisory council is your level of engagement is up to you. Because some people will be like, well, I'm so busy, I don't have time. Like, that's fine. You know, we don't need a lot of time all the time. I like some of your time to come to a meeting. I like some of your time for some input when you can give it, but your time commitment is really up to you. And I think that's important for the advisory council members to know. Let's see, Janetta asks, who manages all the 100 members? So we have me, who does a lot of the managing. We have our associate director, her name is Deb. She does a lot of managing. We have other staff members. We have 6 people on our team. They all have some level of interaction with our advisory council. But I would say for the most part, it's Deb and I that do all the managing, all the emailing. I'll give you an example. I send a weekly update to the advisory council. Okay, I think it's important. It might be 10 lines long, it might be 3 lines long, it might include attachments, it might not. It's something that happened that week. It could be something personal. My update this week, I might say, yeah, I dropped my daughter off at McGill this week. It was wonderful to see Montreal and travel for the first time in a year and a half, even though we drove here. And it might be that short, just something personal, or it might be, typically it's something about the program, but it doesn't need to be. But that type of outreach and updating from us, I think the advisory council members truly enjoy it. Okay, and they truly appreciate it because it makes them feel part of a team, which I think is important. Brandon, this is a funny one. It says, we're in a rural innovation area. 10 to 20 seems more aligned. Well, I'm going to try to be funny here. Ithaca, where I'm from, and where Cornell is the definition of rural innovation. So we're in the middle of nowhere in upstate New York. The nearest highway is about 30 miles away. Okay, I mean, it is really in the middle of nowhere and not the easiest to get to. I I would say that if you want people local, well, sure, maybe 10 to 20, but I don't have 10 to 20 local people because most people graduate from Cornell and leave Ithaca. I graduated from Cornell and went back to Ithaca, after 7 years. But I don't have a lot of local folks on my advisory council. Tim asks, if not engaged, how can they be advisory? That's a great question. I love that one. So Tim, the real key is they all engage sometimes. Okay, and by the way, we also just started something new where we have one-on-one phone calls, short 15-minute phone calls with an advisory council member or two, sometimes three, every week. And it's just meant to be fun. No schedule, no agenda. It's not for fundraising at all. It's just, what are you up to? How's it going? How's your life? Anything we can do for you? Just basically chit chat and small talk. And it's worked out really, really well. So I call that engagement. I'm reaching out, I'm engaging with people, right? If they want more, which many of them do, we get them to speak in classes, we get them to come back and give a webinar or a seminar live or on Zoom. We get them to mentor student teams. That's really important, actually. We get them to mentor student clubs, which is really important, actually, as well. Let's see. Sherry asked for the dollar amounts. Sure, Sherry. So I also want to make a quick point that all of this stuff, most of the stuff I'm talking about today is on our website. It's eShip. I can actually put it in the chat. Let me do that right now. Okay. So eShip.cornell.edu, if you go onto the website and look under the About tab, you will see. I'm trying to find that question again. Here we go. Sorry about that. You'll see the Advisory Council list, and you'll see all the people, their photos, and their areas of expertise, and you'll see a flyer that you can click on and take a look, and it shows the giving level. So if there are $1,000 for young alum, $5,000 for everybody else, and then there's an elevated level at founder level for people to join at if they want to. Let's see. Terry's, yeah, Terry, we haven't got to the campus partners part yet, but I will talk about working with alumni affairs in a minute. It's incredibly important. So I'm going to put that question off. Were the board members always expecting to contribute to fundraising? So ours are. Okay, so at Cornell, there are lots of advisory councils for lots of different programs. Okay, they all come with some sort of monetary contribution, which is important. I shouldn't say all. There's probably some that don't. Okay, I want to say this. Our Entrepreneur of the Year, which is a really, really big honor, okay, comes with no monetary qualification or requirement whatsoever. Okay, but to be on our advisory council, it does. We need their support to help run our program. Should AC all be alum? Janetta, not necessarily. I would say 99% of ours are. Sometimes we'll get a parent who also a parent of a student who wants to join the council. That's great. We also have people from all of our corporate sponsors on our council. So Ernst & Young, Adobe, Autodesk, Cooley, these are some of our sponsors. They all have people on our advisory council as well. Okay, same question. Glad you appreciate the context. Okay, so, oh wait, there's more. Is it okay, Holga, if I keep going down? Oh, that looks like it for now. Okay, great. Let me click back. Okay, so we're asking here about the structure of your program, and this relates to who your campus partners are going to be. So I'm going to tell you now what our structure is at Cornell because it's pretty interesting and unique. At Cornell, there are 12 schools and colleges. So big university, lots of schools and colleges. So engineering, arts and sciences, hotel, human ecology. We just started a new one called the School of Public Policy, law school, Cornell Tech, medical college, I can't even name them all, but there's 12. Each of those schools has a dean. I have a governing board for the program. It's 12 deans. I consider the deans to be my bosses. Okay, so it's like running a company. You're the CEO of a company that has a board. The board is your boss. I consider that to be my governing structure. I don't have any reporting centrally, so I don't report to a provost in central administration. I report to 12 deans. I don't know of any other school in the country that does that. I think it's a wonderful structure, by the way. I also don't think there are any other employees at Cornell that report to 12 deans. But I actually really, really enjoy the structure, and I would highly encourage you to adopt that structure if you have any ability to influence that. The main reason being is that we then have reach into all the schools and colleges. So we can promote the program through all the schools and colleges. We can get advisory council members connected to a professor in a school or college if they want to be, and many of them do. Those are just examples. So it's really cool that Cornell has this structure, and it evolved over time, by the way. The program started back in 1985 with two schools and colleges. When I took it over in 2013, it had 8 of the 12 schools and colleges on the governing board, and then I immediately got the other 4 because it made a ton of sense for them to be involved, and it's worked out just fantastic ever since. So the poll says that some of them, it's about split, isn't it? Some are centralized, some are part of a school and college. We couldn't figure out how to answer or how to ask the question about multiple dean reporting, so we didn't. But you now know how it's done at Cornell. The interesting thing, some entrepreneurship programs are in a school or college like engineering or business. Those are the 2 most common ones. And sometimes you'll have separate entrepreneurship programs in separate schools at your university, and they end up competing. At Cornell, by the way, every school and college can do their own entrepreneurial stuff. They can have their own center if they want it, and we actually highly encourage it. We highly encourage that. Our program, in the way it's structured, assures that no school or college at the university owns entrepreneurship. It's owned by the university, and our program is the steward of that, right? So we're the brand holder for entrepreneurship. But if you go on our website and you'll see all of the entrepreneurial activity, most of that, the vast majority of that, is inside of other schools and colleges. We obviously could never have time, or unless we had a staff of 40 to run all those things, right? So it's really a great idea, I think, to get as much entrepreneurial activity spread across your entire school if you can. Okay, I want to take a quick look at the chat and the Q&A because I see some more questions coming in. Good question. So Harini asked, is the governing board different from the advisory council? The answer is yes, absolutely. The governing board, my 12 deans, they have a lot of power. They literally act like a board of directors and direct the program. I'm free to autonomously operate in that environment, which is wonderful, right? And I do things and report to them every week as well. So the same update that I send to the Alumni Advisory Council, I also send to the 12 deans. I also send to the provost, the vice provost of research, the head of HR, head of marketing. I send it to all the senior administration at Cornell, actually, because I want them to know what's going on with the program. I think it's really, really important to be transparent. So they are definitely different. Harini, the deans control because they're giving money. Absolutely. Terry, I don't understand that question, unfortunately, about deans thinking about ivory tower outcomes. The deans tend to be pretty pragmatic when it comes to entrepreneurship. Our program does not control coursework, so we are co-curricular. And the ivory tower issues really deal a lot, I think, with research and courses. And we don't have to deal with that. We do have, by the way, we have a faculty director for our program as well. He is a tenured faculty member inside undergraduate business. Works out wonderfully for us. I'm going to try to scroll here. I'll go to a couple more questions. Sherry asked, would you be willing to share your organizational bylaws and guidelines? Everything we have is on our website, Sherry, and there isn't much there when it comes to bylaws and guidelines. Okay, so we don't have a formalized set that we have to live by, which you might be surprised, but it works pretty well not having one. Let's see. How do you coordinate programs so they aren't duplicative? This is a great question. So Wade asked the question, if any of the schools and colleges at Cornell can do what they want when it comes to entrepreneurship, which is true, how do you make sure that they're not stepping on each other's toes? Okay, great question. So we do ask the schools and colleges to play nicely in the sandbox. It's a big sandbox. Okay, 4 times a year, we have a formal sandbox lunch. I don't call it a sandbox, but we get all the faculty and staff, anybody who wants to come. We serve them very good food at our hotel school, which is a great hotel school. And we talk for an hour and a half or two. Typically between 50 and 60 people show up. Everyone says what they are working on that semester or coming up, so people can hear it and talk about it, right? We try to make sure that, you know, some big competition in engineering isn't happening at the same time as some big competition in the hotel school, in terms of we don't want their final presentations to overlap, because we want people to be able to go to everything, okay? There's always going to be some little miscues. That's fine, particularly at a large university. But generally speaking, people are pretty courteous. They'll call us and say, hey, any reason why we shouldn't be doing this? And I'm thinking, no, I can't think of any. That sounds great. Or yeah, have you thought about this? Or have you talked to someone in architecture, because that's touching on design thinking and there's already a course taught on that? You better go talk to somebody there. So we really try to play nicely in the actual sandbox. And the sandbox at Cornell is really big. And I appreciate the fact that many of you are at smaller schools where the sandbox is more manageable. I would use that to your advantage. Okay, let's talk about coordination because this is important. And a lot of people have asked about this with Alumni Affairs and Development. So our key partners, okay, one of them is clearly Alumni Affairs and Development, because we are raising money and we need to be careful how we do it. For the most part, our Alumni Affairs and Development team don't care if I recruit somebody to the advisory council, even if they're a tracked individual. If they're really well known, I would, like, let's say an incredibly successful entrepreneur, I would never recruit that person to the advisory council without talking to somebody in development. Even though they might not care, I still would check with them if they're at a level of entrepreneur that is so, you know, well known, or if they have a wealth level that is known to be vast. Okay, because it might be that Alumni Affairs is talking to them about another big gift, and they don't want that big gift to be, confused or conflicted with a small gift to my program. Absolutely. So I do check with Alumni Affairs. We have ongoing discussion from the top of Alumni Affairs all the way down to what I would call lower level staff. Okay, we work with them for our events. They help us run our events, which is actually wonderful. So there's a lot of coordination. Okay, and my best practice to share, Luis, is to be as transparent as possible. Okay, and again, in a university or college setting, transparency isn't always the easiest thing. There's often silos. I know it better than anybody. I consider our program to be a silo breaker. Like, we just knock down silos, get people working together, and we're incredibly transparent. It's at the point now, and it has been for quite a while, where development, that's Alumni Affairs, will recruit members to the advisory council. So I get lots of inbound calls. Oh, I have an alum, they started their own business, or they're working at a startup and they'd love to get involved. Would you mind talking to them? Absolutely. Like, that's my favorite type of call. Okay, so they need to be brought in. And the reason why development likes this so much is because no matter what school or college your development officer might be working with, so again, complicated, at Cornell, 12 schools and colleges, that means there's 12 different sets of development folks. There's also central development, okay, which makes it more complicated. But entrepreneurs and people that are interested in entrepreneurship come from all walks of life. So our program has a lot of attractiveness to people from all the different schools and colleges at Cornell or your schools. I mean, it doesn't matter where they graduated from, right? And it doesn't matter what their major is. They really can find folks that have an interest in entrepreneurship, and they want them to be engaged with the university. Okay, I'm going to scroll down for a couple more questions. I used to teach, Netta, not anymore. I don't have time. That's probably what you were thinking, I'm guessing. So yeah, I used to teach at the business school. I taught there from 1997 to 2013. But then when I took over the larger program, I stopped teaching. And it's also funny, to give you a little more perspective. When I was at the business school at Cornell, the graduate business school, I ran the entrepreneurship program for the business school. And my primary partner throughout my whole entire time at the business school was the Entrepreneurship at Cornell program. So I ran entrepreneurship for the business school, but I wanted the business school to be tied to the overall entrepreneurship program. And when the guy that was running the program retired back in 2013, which he did, he retired, I stepped in as the acting director and then got the job. So again, collaboration is, in my view, the key to one of the keys to our success. We do, Janetta asked, do we collect a lot of data? The answer is yes, but collecting data is difficult and it's sensitive. I know how many students come to our hackathons, how many come to our big conferences, how many use our mentoring program or our accelerator program. The data is definitely not perfect, and the larger the school, the harder it is, in my view, to get good data, because there's a lot of restrictions as to how much you can get out of students. So good luck with that one. Do you review measures, analytics, of whether weekly emails are read? Oh, that's great. So I would not call one a week excessive. So Arlene, I actually disagree with you on that one. I've never had an advisory council member complain about getting a weekly update. And Doug, sure, I know you're on the webinar. You could pop something into the chat to back me up on that, or not. But they seem to love it. I give updates. Some respond, some don't. I don't know whether they're read. I send them out with a normal Outlook email, web email server. I don't require a read receipt. I think those are obnoxious. I just want them to know what I'm up to. If they care enough to read it, that's great. If they don't, that's okay. Okay, so I want to get it out there. And by the way, when I send the weekly update to the deans and to central administration, I typically get responses back from just one or two people. Not always the same one or two people though. Okay, so I'm confident that they're being read, and that level of engagement I think is important, even though it's pretty low touch and it's really easy to do. So we don't have a CRM, Terry, to help us. Cornell is a Salesforce university, but we don't. Our program does not use that product. I have Excel spreadsheets that for all my tracking, including funding tracking. It's not difficult to do, but the short answer is we don't have a normal CRM. Is there anyone that you won't accept to your board or had to remove? So let me think. We've never had to remove anybody. I won't accept anybody without talking to them. The good news is I can't think of anybody that I thought was questionable. Sometimes I'll do a quick background. Successful people sometimes do silly things, right? The best example I probably shouldn't even say it, so I'm going to skip it. But there are examples at Cornell, prominent people who gave huge gifts to Cornell, who who then got in trouble for other things that are very, very public. I just don't feel like talking about it on the webinar today. But I don't do a ton of vetting. If I wanted somebody off the board, I could easily get them off the board. We don't accept bad behavior. If somebody misbehaved at an event, you can clearly think what misbehavior might look like. They would definitely know about it. So it's good not to be shy. Do you capture skills, capabilities, and interests? Yes, they're all on our website, Terry. So if you go onto our website listing under the About tab, look at our advisory councils, it lists all their skills in particular. Interest, not so much. That's what the informal calls that we do with the 15-minute short calls would be more about. When someone needs a report, they would come to us. Dave asked, what about reporting activity? So we typically have produced an annual report of activity. I can tell you this, it's hard for us because we have to extract data from a bunch of different nodes at Cornell and then work with the data and then put it into a presentation that makes sense. I need a person to do that. I need a better, not better. Right now we don't have the person, so I need to fill that position and actually do that. So that would be a great hire for me, which I'm going to work on. Oh, great. Doug Ray's never complained about the updates from Zach. Thanks, Doug. I send my weekly updates. Janetta asks, when you send updates out to your groups, are they separate or one email? One email. Okay, but I do BCC people because 100 people don't want everyone else, necessarily responding back. I mean, you're going to have someone respond back by accident, right? And then that goes to all, and people get upset about that. So I definitely BCC everybody. When I send it to the deans, though, in central administration, I use the to field. If they want to reply, they can reply to everybody. Because I think deans are a little bit more savvy when it comes to that type of thing. And obviously, central administration also falls into that bucket. And if a dean responds and they reply to all, I think the other deans should know what, they're basically saying, I want other deans to read this. So that's actually fine. You can use your own judgment on that. From a Salesforce native, hope it's working out. I don't have any pros and cons, Stephanie, because we haven't used it much. Oh, thanks, Brandon, for sharing out. Dave just hired a communications person. That's good. I need another one. Okay, but do I miss any good questions? Holga, I'm looking down.
I believe you did most of them, yeah.
I can't, it went back to the top, so okay, great. I think that's the last one. Last one for now, anyway. Okay, so keep the questions up. This is actually fun, and I know that we're chugging right along here. So key partners for review. Development office, absolutely. Central administration, depends on your structure. Okay, so for me, I don't report centrally, but you know what? I want everyone to know what I'm doing, so I send them the weekly update. And it just gives me access, which I think is important. And it creates a two-way street. And for me, the deans at the schools and colleges are absolutely critical, as I've already explained. Okay, how to use the AC. Time for the poll. Choose as many as you want. We talked about a lot of these already. And while we're doing that, I'm going to skip to the next slide so I can start talking while the results are coming in. So I think that mentoring students is one of the most rewarding ways that advisory council members can participate in your program. They love helping students because they can relate to it. A lot of them are student entrepreneurs. Okay, so they can really understand what it's like to be a student entrepreneur and help them out and make them hopefully successful. With mentoring, we have a person who runs our mentoring program. That person has a volunteer team of mentors. I think it's really important to have somebody that's on your staff running the program because you want to make sure that the volunteers are engaging and doing a good job and being responsive. I think it's important for that. Whoa, a lot of people said in-person meetings, absolutely. Mentoring students, speaking in classes, pretty much everything. Okay, so I'm going to go to speaking in classes. One thing to keep in mind here is that unless your program controls classes, or a class or two or three, getting speakers into classes requires a lot of coordination with faculty. We used to have a class that my program would supply 12 speakers to, one a week. Guess what? They were all advisory council members. That class went away, unfortunately. And this maybe, I think it was Terry who mentioned Ivory Tower, because folks in the Ivory Tower did not, at Cornell, did not think that a lecture series with 12 alums coming in was worthy of one credit. So the class literally went away. Okay? I wasn't too happy about that because it was a great way to engage. And hopefully that class will come back at some point. Speaking at events, so we hold a lot of events, and if the right advisory council member, and I've had lots of them speak at events, if they've been super successful, or they're at a level at a big corporate, for example, a big corporate company where they're good public speakers, we'd love to have them speak at events. And some of our events are really high profile, some are smaller. That's fine. New ideas to pursue, absolutely. This was one of the things I mentioned. We set up project teams over the summer. This was 2 summers ago, not this past summer, but first COVID summer. And one of the things that came out of those teams was what we used to call affinity groups. We're about to launch a new product, which we're now calling Cayuga Forum. Cayuga is Cayuga Lake, where Ithaca is. And it's basically a YPO type product. We call it YPO Lite, where we put alums into small pods of 8 people. The pods meet at least 6 times a year, and then every other month, and then informally for shorter sessions on the off months, and talk about, it's basically letting that pod help each other with family, personal, work type issues. The same way YPO, I'm not sure if you know what YPO is, Young Professional Organization, the same way YPO functions. And there's a lot of these forum type products out there. By the way, those forums, the professionally, the well-known forums cost $5,000 or $10,000 a year to actually join. We're charging $500 a year for this, and we hope to get over time, 100, 200 pods. That's a lot of people. Okay, so we're using it for engagement. We're using it so that alumni feel connected to each other, and we're using it for fundraising. Okay, but that concept came out of an advisory committee, advisory project committee. Okay, so it's important. I'm looking back in the chat for a second to see we got a bunch of questions. Sorry about the pause here. I think there was just actually some tips. Oh, this is interesting. Suzanne wrote, several serve on the investment committee for our student seed fund. They're also investors. So Brendan wrote, whoa, that's insane. So I have a feeling Brandon's reaction was because of conflicts. So you need to be careful about this. Alumni at Cornell are pretty much free to do lots of different things without university oversight. Not all things, obviously. They probably could sit on a seed fund and invest in the fund. Staff, faculty, no way. That would be way too much conflict potential. So you really need to be careful about it. I'm also a venture capitalist. I'm a partner at a fund in Ithaca. We don't invest in any student companies whatsoever because of conflict potential. So I know that was a side note, but I address that because it showed up in the chat. Make sure that conflicts are handled appropriately, and make sure you get the right input from folks at your school to make sure that you don't get in trouble. Absolutely. Okay, let's talk about recruitment for a second. Actually, Chris asked the question, do I have a case study? We have a write-up, Chris. It's not up on our website yet, but we've created a flyer about why join the forum. Okay, that'll be up on our website under the networking section in probably about a week. You can check it out there. Okay, so ways to recruit. I mentioned this already. Development, use them to recruit. Get to know people in your university's development team. Okay, tell them what you're up to. Get their input. Listen. Okay, I know a lot of times at universities and colleges, things don't get done that quickly, so don't get frustrated. I've been working on getting an endowment for our program. We don't have a big endowment. I know it's surprising. Well, it should be surprising. We don't have a big endowment. We have a bunch of little ones that produce a couple $100,000 a year, but we don't have a big naming endowment. I've been working on it for 8 years. Okay, I think it'll work at some point, but it takes time. Okay, so be patient. Getting advisory council members to recruit other members. Okay, absolutely, great thing to do. Suzanne asked, are your AC members allowed to invest in student startups? Absolutely, and we encourage it because we can't force a student team to take money. That never happens. They always want the investment. So if a student team or student startup is raising money, absolutely alumni can invest, whether they're AC members or not. That's encouraged. We don't coordinate that activity, but we facilitate it. We have a demo day, for example, for our accelerator program. And at demo day, lots of alums show up, and they absolutely can invest. This flyer, I know it's hard to read on the screen. This is our why join our advisory council flyer, which, again, an advisory council committee helped produce. Okay, and this is on our website. You can see it there, so I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but it covers just about everything we talked about so far today. Publicizing the AC. Okay, so again, hopefully your program will or does have a great website. Okay, logo dangling applies to corporate sponsors, not so much AC members, but some members who have businesses want to have their companies be sponsors as well. You can look at our corporate sponsor section on our website again for that. Okay, they can speak at event programs, they can speak in classes, and you can, when they speak, you say this person's on the AC. So whatever you can do, you make it really clear. We used to have a print magazine. We stopped it last year because of COVID, and now I doubt it's ever coming back. We used to have a print magazine, and in the back of the magazine, we named all the advisory council members, right? Of course, sort of like an honor roll. So it's pretty easy, and I would say common sense. All right. So I'm trying to do. Oh, did I stop sharing by accident? That was a mistake. Hold on a second. I pressed too many buttons at once. I think we're on the summary anyway. All right, there we go. Okay, so in summary, the question and answers, by the way, have been fabulous. Okay, so if there's more, please pop them in. I think having an AC can be a big win. I think having a lot of people can be a big win. Okay, with the understanding that the level of engagement from different members is going to fluctuate all over the place, and it will fluctuate over time. Some will be really engaged one year and not engaged the other year because they're busy for whatever reason. Okay, engagement is a big challenge for sure. It's tough to keep that many people engaged, right? Okay, but I think that you should be up to the challenge and create exciting ways to do that. And then I just want to emphasize again, Getting the different university partners to play in the sandbox with you, absolutely vital and really, really important. Okay, so if you think to yourself, oh, I wonder if I should check with alumni affairs, the fact that you're asking the question means you should check. Okay, so don't be shy. And you're going to get turned down a lot, just like any startup. There's a lot of no's. Okay, I have an upcoming meeting with the head of alumni affairs in a couple of weeks. I want to talk to him and his team about how entrepreneurship fits into Cornell's next campaign whenever that kicks off. I'm not going to find out anything that's earth-shattering, but I want to keep the conversation going, right? Which is actually really, really important. Terry asked a great question. Do you deliberately recruit advisors to better match diversity? Absolutely. Absolutely. So in entrepreneurship, this is a challenge because the diversity set in entrepreneurship, there's a lot of old white guys and young white guys, right? But we recruit women all the time, people of color all the time, people from different parts of the world all the time. We absolutely do it, and it's important. I would say we still have a decent amount of work to do. If you look at our advisory council list on our website, you'll see a lot of different. You'll see a good representation of diversity. It's not good enough yet. Okay, so we are recruiting all the time. It's important. So we are just about at the end. It's 12:56. Not much time for live Q&A, but we've had a lot of good Q&A anyway. Holga, I'll give it to you for last parting words.
Yes. Thank you everybody so much for participating and being so engaged during this presentation so far. All the questions in the chat were fantastic. Building on that, let me first extend a very huge thank you to Zach for all of these wonderful insights for this past hour. Thank you everyone for attending. And to wrap up this session, one big question is, what could you do right now? So taking in the momentum from all the learnings today, if you're interested in taking any kind of action right now, I would like to extend the offer to sign up for a personal consultation with Teresa at StartupTree to assess how you can bring these learnings into your entrepreneurship center. I know Zach's addressed a ton how different entrepreneurship centers of different sizes and stages may react to this information separately. So I highly recommend taking that consultation and seeing how, no one size fits all solution can help for you. And I'll be sending that Calendly link right in the chat.
Somebody asked if the recording would be available for attendees.
Mm-hmm. I'll be sending out an email to everyone who's registered for this webinar. Feel free to forward this to anyone that you think would find this valuable, and it'll be in your inbox before the end of the day.
Fantastic. Any final questions or thoughts? Great. I will go find my daughter somewhere in some street in Montreal. Okay. Thanks, everybody. And you're most welcome.
So much.
Okay. See you soon.
Bye.